concerns about the stability of the global financial system. Let's turn to Anil Kashyap, professor of economics and finance at the University of Chicago Booth School of Medicine. Anil, I want to begin with Janet Yellens' testimony on Capitol Hill. Did it go far enough in easing concerns? So many people right now are worried about their money in the bank.
Well, it depends what you are referring to in terms of who's worried. People that are individuals don't have $250,000 in the bank mostly. And for those people, there's no reason at all to be concerned. The trouble has to do with large depositors who are moving money around that isn't insured. And for those people, events keep occurring that outpace whatever Secretary Yellen said. So just before we started speaking, there's rumors now that a number of large banks are going to make a deposit into one of the banks that was in trouble in California. That kind of thing could generate a lot more confidence than anything the Secretary can say. But I think for individuals, there's very little risk, no risk basically for the average person of losing any money.
Anil, is it your sense that regulators were perhaps caught off guard by the collapse of SVB and Signature Bank?
Yes.
Why is that?
I don't know, and they're going to have to answer that. There's no way that, certainly Silicon Valley Bank should have been on their radar screens much sooner than it apparently was, and it shouldn't have come down to the kind of situation where we had to scramble over a weekend to get it resolved. Their problems were very unusual, not typical of other banks in the United States. They had a huge number of deposits that were not insured. They also had a lot of concentrated exposure in their loans. And so they were kind of vulnerable to losses from rising interest rates, both because the loans were going to go bad and because a lot of the securities that they bought were going to lose value. And that should have been primarily handled by Silicon Valley Bank. How they managed to blow it is going to be a big question. But given that they did, the regulators should have been next in line to stop the problems.
So you have turmoil in the banking sector, and then Goldman Sachs raised the chances of a U.S. recession to 35%, up 10 percentage points from the previous prediction. When you add all this together, Anil, what are we going to see from the Feds next week in terms of interest rate hikes?
Well, 4 days is still a long time given the speed of banking problems. So things may abate over the next couple of days. By the time they get to their meeting on Tuesday, we may have seen a corner's been turned, in which case I think they'll go back to worrying about inflation. If it weren't for all of these developments in the financial system, we would be talking about whether they're going to raise rates by 25 or 50 basis points. And they may still end up raising somewhat. But I think you just have to wait and see. And as long as nothing else drops in the next couple of days, I think we may have turned the corner. Now, there may be hidden losses or hidden problems that haven't surfaced so far, but I think things are going okay so far.
And finally, I have to ask you about Credit Suisse, that whole debacle. Why does it matter? Why should it matter to people in this country?
Credit Suisse is connected to our largest banks. There's a big asymmetry between Silicon Valley Bank, which was not really connected to the core of the financial system. Credit Suisse probably does have exposure to almost all the large European banks, and then those banks in turn have exposure to large US banks. So it's the Credit Suisse problems, even though they're peculiar to Credit Suisse, they have had management difficulty, they've had problems with their reporting and the integrity of their risk management and all of that. It's not because of some problem that you think other big European banks have, but they're a large bank. They're more than twice as big as Silicon Valley. And if they were to tip over, that would spread and that would touch the core of the system. And so you have to be a little bit concerned. It looks like Credit Suisse may have finally gotten a lifeline from the Swiss government, and perhaps they've also stabilized. But again, the events are changing rapidly.
Indeed. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much.